are going to start off with a panel discussion. And so we have some great folks. So let me introduce you to the group. We have Steve Greenberg, Sarah Vogt, Hal Lange, and Andrew Taylor all joining us today for the panel discussion. How's everyone doing today?
Very well.
Awesome.
Doing well.
Everybody?
Nice. So, Mr. Shane over there, do you want to kick things off with the panel discussion?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So, first off, as Jarian mentioned, thank you for joining the panel. It's always fun to have intelligent folks like yourself on a panel to answer questions from the audience and also just kind of get your thoughts and insights. So, thank you. To kind of kick things off, I think it's good. There's a lot going on. These XLs, happen, almost every quarter, and haven't talked to everyone in a while. So maybe we just take a minute, kind of go around the horn, and just hear a little bit about what everyone's kind of been up to. I think would be a good way to kind of kick this off. I guess we'll start with you, Steve. You're on the top right of the screen, and we'll slide around.
All right, hey guys. Well, I'm a consultant. I work with clients on a daily basis in different areas, and I'd say top of my mind right now is that we're living the hybrid reality. We've got kind of customers that are all on-prem, all on cloud, in between, transitioning, going back and forth. So I think that hybrid has become a reality. Also, a lot of focus on integrating into Azure-based services. I was going to say Azure AD, but they renamed it right before this webinar. So, those kind of integrations, making things work in the cloud, making them work hybrid, that's kind of what we're doing every day right now.
Awesome. Yeah. So I like you kind of coined that hybrid reality, right? We've been talking hybrid for a while, but we're here. And
Yep.
Very true. So I guess we'll go to Sarah next.
It's been a busy year. I mean, I did my, just recently became a CTP this year, and I got to do I called it my Citrix field trip. So I, with a lot of you, went from Fort Lauderdale to Arizona to Nashville, which was fantastic to spend so much time with you guys and a lot of people that are on this in the chats. We've been busy. We just migrated. We're in the process of migrating 11 NetScalers from MPXs to VPXs. We've done 7 of them so far, and that's been a big learning time for me, because I knew the access gateway portion of it, but now I'm becoming way more into the networking aspects of it, and so that's been great. And we've been setting up virtual training room using CVAD and enterprise browser, and a lot of good stuff going on. It's been fun.
Awesome. We'll come back to enterprise browser and also NetScaler. I made a note to ask you some questions around that, with obviously the business unit change. Curious if the experience changed on that. So let that marinate a little bit, and then we'll head over to Andrew.
Hi, my name's Andrew Taylor, and I'm an end user. And top of mind, my company made the transition to the cloud a couple of years ago, and which has been really great for us. We sort of are 100% in Azure. I say that because my company has been making some acquisitions lately. And in the building materials industry, which I'm in, there's varying levels of technologies out there, but most of it's on premise. So I feel like I'm back to square one. I have a bunch of servers now to move back to the cloud, but that's okay. And leveraging Citrix technologies to make sure that their access level continues to be the quality that they expect from when they used to have on-premise servers. So.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have some questions around that being 100% cloud, and curious. Got some questions around the cost modeling and stuff just skewing around in my head there. So that's cool. So and finally we'll go. Thank you for that. We'll go to Hal. Man, what have you been up to? It's been a minute.
It has been a while. Lately, I've been working as an end user for Citrix at a big telecommunications area, where dealing in massive scale size that I had never seen before as a consultant. It's been a real fun time. We're in the process of migrating everything to a no trust type solution, where we don't even trust our own internal network in the data center. So everything is completely isolated from everything else. It's been a very fun learning experience, trying to figure out all the firewall rules needed for apps, as well as just the internal Citrix infrastructure. So that's been our roadmap for the last 6 months or so, and we'll be continuing.
That's awesome. And just for the audience, can you give kind of an idea of the type of scale you're talking about in the thousands?
Good question.
We have multiple environments. One environment is 30,000 concurrent, averaging between 90 to 120,000 unique users. If you add them all up, we're probably around the 50,000 concurrent model right now and growing still, and probably up around the 150 to 175,000 unique users that are coming into our environment.
Awesome. That is that's quite.
If I can add a comment there, we came off a project recently, Hal, that was zero trust by nature, and the manpower was mostly that. In other words, it took way more work to quantify all the communications that have to occur and deploy them and test them and validate them than to build or design or do any other aspect of the environment.
100% agree. I mean, we've been spending 6 months doing research, using all sorts of tools, things like Uber Agent to try and track from the user perspective, talking to the application owners, asking the network team, can you tell us what's actually being used? I mean, all sorts of different ways, and then trying to really limit that and get it to be replicated across multiple subnets while also keeping our different use cases separated. So that way a call center doesn't go into the retail, which doesn't go into the knowledge workers. And that's always been the fun here. And then what are the global rules that you can use, like all the CRLs?
Are you using any kind of micro-segmentation products for that, to help with that?
Depends on the environment.
That's fair.
We have some of them, and we're looking at others. Like we're looking at things like flow.
Yeah.
We're utilizing, depending on which environment. Some have them, some don't. So I'm not sure I want to talk about more than just the.
Just general is cool.
Yeah.
It's so unique, though. I mean, compared to the rest of us. How many? I am curious. How many Citrix admins or how many people does it take to run a?
There are 8 of us.
Oh wow,
that's
not a lot.
Nope. And it's a lot of work.
Lots of automation probably too, I bet.
Oh yes. 90% of our stuff is automated on a regular basis.
But Hal, is it fair to say that part of the secret sauce is that you do silo and you do it in manageable pieces?
Absolutely.
Is that accurate?
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, big environments use PVS or MCS. Almost all of our environments are non-persistent. Most don't have profiles. Most of our users come in, we don't have to worry about persona. So that saves us a lot of time and headache.
I'm just saying, that's
a dream to me. I don't think I've ever done a project that didn't require it. Probably because your apps are custom built, right? And they have the data access you need inside your apps.
Probably 95% of the apps are web-based. So all the access is based out of the database, which makes things a lot easier.
Yeah. So let's talk about everyone's thoughts on the merger and the new Citrix and going back private. Let's kind of go around in the same direction again. So we'll start with Steve here on this one.
Well, I have a lot of different contact points with Citrix over a very long time. So I started as a customer of Citrix in 1993. It's been a long time. I guess that actually makes it 30 years. And I think it was, I'll find out what month, but it's almost exactly 30 years. So I've kind of seen it all. And for most of that, I've also been a reseller and a consultant. So from my point of view, this is a great thing. I think Citrix is demonstrating like the focus they've needed for a very, very long time. I think there were too many products and policies and directions. So from my slice of the world, it's actually really awesome. It's kind of like the Citrix I wanted it to be for a long time. So I think it's big thumbs up, actually.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of what we mentioned in the beginning too with Calvin, right? Is the tenure, like the leadership at the head of Citrix right now is over, I think it's like 120 years or whatever. When you add up these are people that have been there since day one, and that are passionate about it, and they're now leading the charge. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
That gives a lot of credit to the master company and the CEO who came in and seemed to give the direction of let's focus on the people that understand the company, not bring in some new names from some other place with their philosophy. And that seems to be working. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Shane, go ahead.
No, I was going to say same here. Go ahead, Jarian. Yeah.
Sarah, how about your thoughts on what you've seen so far?
Well, I mean, I'm with Steve. I mean, I started using Citrix in 1999 with WinFrame 1.7. So I've seen the company, go through a period where, we thought Microsoft was, going to win the remote war there for a while, and they didn't. And, and then we kind of went into a phase where it just seemed things were going in too many different directions. I remember sitting in Synergy, like 2008, and so many products, and I felt like I was like, gosh, I know I'm not stupid, but I can't keep up with all the various products. And I feel like right now things are tightened up. I think the focus on engineering, I'm happy to hear that there's like a return to storefront and gonna, start to redevelop that. And I'm excited for, the quality of the product coming out. And so I look forward to it. And like to Steve's point, I feel like, we're really headed in a good direction. So.
Nice. Andrew, what are your thoughts? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just say all good stuff.
Okay. Andrew, how about your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so I definitely like the streamlined product set. Unfortunately, one of the products that my company uses is the Citrix SD-WAN, which didn't survive the new Citrix, but that's okay. It's just part of technology, and change is just one of the guaranteed constants that you do. I like that I feel like the rate of change is increased. I watch the RSS feeds, and there's definitely more features coming for Citrix Workspace and the CVAD products and stuff like that. I also appreciate, even though I am 100% cloud, the refocus on hybrid and on-prem. It's interesting that they are now the cloud software group, but are focusing less on cloud, but that's good. Because it just gives me more options, because as I was talking about, as we do these mergers and as I look at these acquisitions I've got, and being able to possibly put some Citrix servers on-prem much easier now, that makes my life easier. So I definitely appreciate it. So.
I guess you could say that it is Cloudware Software Group, but they're more of a hybrid cloud focus now instead of a public cloud focus, which is good, because it did feel for many years that there was an over-rotation to public cloud and kind of leaving private cloud and hybrid cloud kind of on the back burner there.
100%.
How about you?
Considering we are a pretty much all on-prem solution with now looking to burst to cloud, I'm ecstatic to see them come back to the on-prem stuff. I mean, we felt very abandoned as they were going to the cloud and not doing anything local. So with that, we're very happy to see that. Otherwise, as far as from an enterprise perspective, I mean, we always deal with the same people over and over and don't have to switch around too much. So it's the same stuff for us with that aspect.
Yeah, and it's nice to see. I think it's nice to see the commitment. Like, it's over the years, Citrix has come out and said, we're going to do this, or we're going to focus on this. But you're already seeing the commitment from Jason's presentation on Web Studio. All the great stuff that's in the DAS service, like Autoscale is a great one, especially, Andrew, in your case with public cloud, right? And being able to scale those workloads and potentially save, doing pay as you go where it makes sense based on the concurrency. But I think that's really cool to see those things coming to the on-prem product. So you'll be able to take advantage of those. So,
hey, can I ask a question?
Of course.
So I've got a question for Andrew, because you're one of the few people that really truly are like, all cloud, other than you mentioned earlier that you have some mergers and things. But can you talk about like your paradigm, like how you use Citrix in the cloud, which platform and which approach, what tools, that kind of thing?
Oh, sure. So we use a lot, particularly desktops. We offer full desktops for our end users. We have a lot of users using thin clients, and we're taking full advantage of using Agile endpoints so that people can use Teams for audio and video. Our call centers through there, and I try to live on the CR. That's caught me a couple times, but mostly the new features and the stability for
Yeah.
teams has been really great. And I'm using the machine creation services, MCS. So I have my gold image that I'm able to update and push, and FS Logics for profile management. Hal, your life sounds amazing. minus the scale. Folks having profiles. And then because of my company existing across about 6 time zones, I don't really get to auto scale a lot. My systems tend to be pretty busy. And I also have locations that run 24/7. And so particularly in Azure, reservations are amazing.
Yeah.
So that makes all the difference, being able to use reserved instances in Azure. But and they're also just doing some really cool stuff with their networking and file access speed. I used to get 2-3 tickets a week about, and I think everyone will have heard these, Citrix is slow, which it was not. Very rarely was it ever Citrix. It was the network, it was the disk, it was the CPU bound on my virtual machines, that kind of stuff. All of that stuff, when you are able to right size and make adjustments on the fly in the cloud, has just disappeared. So I might get one every couple of months now.
So I guess since you said that you're across 6 time zones, are your machines across the 6 time zones? Or are you sitting in one data center?
I'm sitting in one data center. And then in Azure, we use site replication for all of our persistent workloads. For Citrix, I just have a couple of cloud controllers just waiting in my DR site with an image in case I have to deploy there. So just knocking on wood over
Andrew, you mentioned customer service, and the audio and the telephony for customer service is always the biggest challenge. How do you guys approach that?
So we found a contact center solution that supported Teams. And so we have the audio coming through Teams, and the audio enhancements that Citrix continues to work on and Microsoft continues to work on. It's very impressive.
So you're offloading to the endpoint essentially, right? So those
totally,
we're doing kind of the same thing, but with right now with Mobile Agent from Cisco. We are looking at the Google voice platform, which I'm hoping somebody out there has already been able to get to work in Citrix, because I'd love to pick your brain on it.
Who was you might want to talk with was it James, who was working on the redirection and the audio and the voice communication at the CTP meeting? You might want to reach out to James Xu. Yeah, I think he had the presentation about all the troubleshooting for that and that. So if you, with your guys' size and you're looking at Google's voice product, you might want to reach out to him and see if they've got anything on the radar for that one. So
all right, send me the name so I have it spelled right, please.
Yeah, I'll ping you after this. So we've got a couple of questions coming here from the chat. So this is always a fun one. Let's talk about Zen server direction. So Citrix did Zen server. Yeah, well, Citrix hypervisor, then Zen server, Citrix hypervisor, now back to Zen server. So is
Tobias on here?
Yeah. So yeah, it does seem like they were moving away from Zen server, and then with the cloud software group transition, they brought back Zen server as its own product group. So what are your all's thoughts on the direction of Zen server? And we'll go back on the same. Actually, we'll go reverse order this time. How about you, Hal? Let's go first with Hal.
As much as they tried to kill Zen server, I don't think they ever could, just because of the SDX platform. So I mean, it's always been there and always been used. So I'm glad to see that they're bringing it back to actually work on it publicly, since they were always going to be using it anyways. As far as our thoughts on it, it's another hypervisor in the tool. I mean, in the tool belt, we have probably using 3 different hypervisors just in our environment. I can only imagine what's being used out there. So I'd love to have another one just for those use cases.
Andrew?
So we, prior to going to the public cloud, Zen server was our, or we're calling it now, was our hypervisor of choice, and I thought it was great. But yeah, I don't have, unfortunately, any recent experience with it, other than it's like Hal said, it's great to have options. So,
Sarah?
Yeah, I can't speak to this one. We were a VMware shop, now we're a Hyper-V shop. It would take me a little bit of convincing to try and introduce a new hypervisor into that. So, I hope it succeeds just because I'm a Citrix fan, but I don't have any insight on it.
That's interesting. You said that you've gone from VMware to Hyper-V, because usually you see the other direction, right? You see people usually getting off Hyper-V and going to another hypervisor. So what are your thoughts on, since you're a Hyper-V shop, and that transition and how your day-to-day operations go with it?
I think, we've had our challenges with it. Obviously, I do think, VMware was probably the premier product. Their maintenance fees and it was more of a financial business decision that we went to it, not a technical one. We had a lot of challenges even putting the NetScaler, the VPXs on there, because, it behaved a little bit differently. And the consultant we were working with, admitted, he's like, well, I've done it on VMware. I've done it on, Zen server. I haven't done it on Hyper-V. And we had to learn some things that it didn't react exactly the same way it did. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but we make it work.
Oh, Hal, you were saying something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, we also migrated from VMware, but we went to AHV. So with the Zen server stuff, I'm really glad to see that there's just another competitor to VMware. That 800-pound gorilla needs the kick in the pants.
Yeah,
agree. I'm sure Steve has some pretty good insight here on this one.
Yeah, this is a tough question for me, and I think I'm going to slightly punt and segue. Like I was describing before about being involved in this a long time, so you've seen it all. We've deployed Zen server, for customers. It was the hypervisor for customers, but when support changes and these different time periods we talked about, it became problematic. So it's great to see it in again, but the punt here is people are also asking about FS Logics, and the comment I wanted to make is technologies wax and wane, and like FS Logics came in strong. Had some issues, seems to be doing better. So I think the takeaway is you've got to be current and you've got to find out where something's at. So Zen server's in a good place. Like Hal, great to see the option. We haven't used it in a long time because of other lacks of commitment to it and problems like that. And I think FS Logics that people are asking about is that way too. You kind of got to get a pulse and see when something is really being properly supported and when it's not. It's tough. That's why we have jobs. Otherwise, you could just subscribe to the cloud and be done.
Yeah, and that's a good point there on the FS Logics. I did see that mentioned as well. Specifically, the thought there about UPM or Citrix Profile Management, and folks not seeing a lot of Citrix Profile Management. So another one, Hal, you don't have to worry about there. Must be nice.
No. Like I said, we have multiple environments. Our big ones don't use profiles.
Yeah.
Depending on some of our smaller ones, we have FS Logics or we have UPM. So we're actually running both, all depending on what type of environment we're dealing with at that time.
Yeah. So I guess talking on that, and to Steve's point too, there's a lot of changes, obviously after the acquisition from Microsoft with FS Logics. Personally for us in the consulting field, what we've seen is just the massive lack of support as if there's challenges. They just started coming back out with stuff and helping to kind of close the gaps and things like that. But whereas Citrix took the last 2 years and just doubled down on CPM and the incredible features that they're baking into the product. They got the OneDrive support, the multi-site support. They just introduced app masking into the product. So there's a lot going on there. So I'm curious, I guess, what can ask the group their thoughts on I guess, Hal, since you just the last one that mentioned there. Have you guys testing any of those features? What's your thoughts? And
yes. We just rolled out the multi-site for UPM, actually.
Yep.
So again, it all depends on which environment we're dealing with. So we love FS Logics in certain environments when we're dealing with the non-persistent desktops and all these app changes and everything else, because that's where we were a few years ago. But we love the UPM in some of our multi-user environments where it's much easier to deal with. We only copy out the specific details we need, and away we go. And then with the multiple data centers, since we are all on-prem, we like to be able to replicate things across. And the terminal servers, we definitely need to. The desktops, not so much.
Yeah, I use FS Logics 100%.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
but I live a version back.
Wise man.
And then also profile growth is killer. It does a
Yep.
very
yeah.
and so there's a script on GitHub that I could show anyone if they're interested. And every Saturday night, I guess Sunday morning at 12:01 a.m. when my Citrix servers reboot to refresh themselves, I have a script that runs and shrinks all my user
Containers, yeah.
containers.
How many user containers is that? Because I'm thinking how long that script takes for us.
Only 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah, it does take a while to run.
So mileage varies.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, if you have lots of people, it could be interesting. And there is some stuff I haven't gotten there yet where you can make some adjustments. Particularly, I find Teams. The first time Teams starts up,
Yeah.
it downloads a bunch of files, and then it just deletes itself. And so if you can make some adjustments, the script works for me. So I haven't gone to the work of tuning what FSLogix saves, but I've heard good things about that.
Yeah, a good
Hal,
one.
you might have to do it at logout.
Yeah.
In your environment, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so
Like
that's
one at a time.
Yeah. To Steve's point, Aaron Parker, he's got a great script for pruning at logout. So that's exactly for that use case where you go and there's a little XML file at logout. It just doesn't bring it into the container. So that's another, can use both of those in conjunction I've seen. And then I guess, Andrew, in your environment, obviously in Azure, being Azure native, right? Latency with FSLogix, that's one of the things is it's the silent killer. Like FSLogix, if you have high latency in your environment, it doesn't appear to the user as that's the issue, right? There's all kinds of weird things that happen to the OS because it's like pulling the disk out from the OS. So are you guys on Azure Files, or are you NetApp Files in an environment of that size? And
we're contemplating moving to Azure Files. It's only, and I say only, about 10 terabytes of user profiles, so it's not super big. So it just lives on a Windows file server right now. But I am using the premium SSD.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a lot. That's 1,000. You're 1,000 concurrent on the single file server, huh?
Yeah, wow. and that premium SSD makes all the difference. Yeah. And then the Azure, I can't believe I've forgotten the name of it right now, but there's their fast networking option that you turn on.
Yep. Yeah, accelerated. Yep.
The accelerated networking that bypasses a lot of the CPU and stuff like that on the machines makes all the difference. So.
Yep. Great point, Jarian. On that.
Yeah. The built-in compaction feature. So both profile management and FSLogix have that as well to kind of help with that disk size, but you still need to kind of do some of that cleanup stuff, and they're starting to build more things in the product. Yep. But that's a good thing about both FSLogix and Citrix. It seems like Citrix has kind of caught up and add more features. FS, like Steve was saying, they've kind of gone through that support wave type thing, and the whole everyone doing FSLogix, to where now I'm seeing some people coming back to profile management just because it's on a little playing field now. So
yeah. It's a great point, Jarian, is just seeing this in our discussion in the chat. You really need the community because it's changing so quickly. We got people going, wait, this thing has that feature now, and this has that feature, and that's kind of how it is. Like to me, it's Thursday. Okay, so which profile solution are we going to use now? Because last week we had a problem with so and so. It's literally like that. It's like almost like to the week or month. Like when we do a new project, we have to go, okay, which one's sucking the least?
Yeah.
And what is the customer trying to do right now, and which one's going to blow up if we use it? Which one isn't? It's kind of like it changes that much.
I mean, we spent years doing that with server hardware. That for these couple of years we're going to do HP, exactly. These we're going to do Dell. Now it's all commodity. Now the software is getting to that level.
Right.
Yeah, we looked at.
Was it Broadcom, Nick? We have to turn that off.
Those were the days.
We looked at FSLogix, and then we went because of the bloat. We decided to table it and went with UPM. But now we are in the process of discussing that again. In fact, my counterpart just IM'd me and said we need Andrew's script. So I'm going to ask you about that.
And there are third party too. We've been doing some stuff with Liquidware, and Profile Unity has some cool advantages too. Everything's got its own parameters. You just have to kind of take it one case at a time.
I'll tell you one thing though that Citrix can do to kind of help with this whole profile discussion is that all the good new features of profile management are coming in the current release versions, right? So if you're an LTSR, you're kind of out of luck. And one thing I've kind of been given feedback to the profile management team is like, make profile management a non-LTSR CR component. Yeah. Make it like WIM, make it like app layering. That way, it doesn't matter if you're LTSR or CR, you can have, the best of all the features and still be on LTSR or CR versions of Citrix and not worry about that compliance, because that's one conversation I'm constantly having with customers as they're making that decision about, do I stay FS Logics, do I stay profile management, do I switch? But it's always like, well, are you CR or LTSR? And that's one thing they could do to help with that, because again, all the good stuff is coming in the newer releases.
That is a fantastic point, Jarian. That's like kind of like when we first started, I said we're in the hybrid reality. That's kind of a reality of long-term and current release. You got to have certain features that are neither, that can still be maintained even in a long-term branch. Yep. That's a great point.
Hey, and the thing is really too is that WIM real quick, WIM is always having the newer stuff in it anyway, and that's non-LTSR, so it makes sense to bring profile management with it. So, but go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. Well, this point is really, I think we hit on the nerve here. Corey and DJ are adding some things. Like on UPM, are using containers or traditional? Great question. Like there's a new architecture. That's the kind of thing I'm referring to. Like you have to be up on it, and then you'll have to test the containers, and is that going to work the way you want? The traditional, I think UPM had the elegant trophy with the old framework of just excluding things. It was real simple, but now they have a container, so you have to assess that. Any thoughts on that difference?
Well, you can, for me, just real quick, you can go with the hybrid model too, right? So you can put some things in it. I've always been a fan of hybrid type profiles, to where I don't go full container, I don't go full files, I go a hybrid style, because put the large stuff that needs to be in containers and then keep everything else in the file base, because you get a lot more flexibility with that. And because you have that inclusion exclusion engine for both, profile management allows you to do that. And so that's one thing I've been playing around testing with and talking with some customers about.
Now, are you talking separate from like folder redirection?
No, not separate, but just putting like the larger things in. So you can still do folder redirection, that kind of stuff, but putting like your larger stuff in the container, like your Outlook cache, your OneDrive, your team stuff, any kind of very large files that you don't want copying up and then syncing back on log on and log off, just put those in a container, but keep all the small stuff in a file-based solution. It also gives you more flexibility too as you go across multi-session or other stuff, because you can turn on stuff for certain things but not have it on for everything. So you have a little more flexibility there for that.
Yep. Pro tip, that was worth the whole webinar right there.
Well, I actually had a session at the New York that got put on hold because Webster was doing a follow-up. I said just give him the slot to do a follow-up for his last presentation. So I am going to do a webinar about profile management with CUGC.
Nice. There you go.
Amazing.
But other questions here too is that Windows 11 adoption. What are you guys seeing out there for Windows 11?
There's a desktop OS? No, I'm kidding.
But go ahead, Al.
We're mostly terminal server, but we do have some desktop OS systems, and we are looking at going to Windows 11. We haven't gone there yet for the virtual machines. As far as the physical desktops, we're pretty much done pushing that, but not for the virtual yet. We had to wait a long time until they could allow it on virtual machines on site.
It's going to force its way in, but kind of like Windows 7, our clients just want to be on 10. Then that's
we're in the process.
I mean, what's the difference between 10 and 11, though? The start menu moved.
Some newer features, that's about it. Yeah, start menu.
It goes up to 11. It's better than 10.
It looks like Mac. No, we're using it. We're kind of split down the middle now. We have both environments as far as CVAD goes, and then we're rolling it out to our physical, our physical desktops. And then I stood up a virtual training room because in addition to Windows 11, we had a lot of application upgrades and updates, changes and stuff. So we took that opportunity to just kind of bundle it all together and created a virtual training room where we have outside trainers come in and people log in and get a hands-on learning lab. So it's been, which we use Citrix for everything. So,
one colleague, and I haven't done this myself, but they said that Windows 11 is showing significantly better performance and resource utilization, which is interesting. I haven't gone there myself.
I have seen it act more as the antivirus software that we've been looking at for years.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, sorry. I would say I'm a server 2022, so some Windows 11 code is in there, but not Windows 11. So
Right.
So I guess that kind of backs into the whole single session, multi-OS session, especially on the desktop side. So with you being in Azure, does that make sense for you to look at? So you're 2022 today for server side, but have you looked at the desktop multi-session on the Azure side at all?
I played with it. I was just I was jumping from server 2016, and so server 2022 seemed safer. And so Windows 11 may come. I've been hearing inklings about Windows 12, so I don't know if it's worth doing the work for Windows 11 or just waiting until and making Windows 12 my next jump. So
yeah, I think the biggest thing too on that, the multi-session, especially if you're Azure native, right, is the ability to, if you're licensed, right, you have the correct license for M365, E3, E5, et cetera, you know, you don't have to pay those RDS cals at that point. So that's one area where there's value going multi-session, but it really only makes sense, obviously, it's Azure only, right? Or if you're Azure Stack on-prem. So it's something, like you said, familiarity today, but maybe it's something in the future that could be potential cost savings there. So that's good.
Totally.
Yeah.
So Steve, with you being on the consulting side and working with customers, what are you seeing for Windows 11 adoption?
I just, like I said, I think the basic sentiment is just don't want to deal with it. I think it's probably happening more on the physical side than the virtual, but it's working its way in, you know. But we're still just like building 10 images and deploying VDI. It's almost like they just don't want to deal with it. I know it sounds weird and unscientific, but that's what I perceive.
We have both.
Oh, go ahead.
One thing we have to always acknowledge, and Andrew is saying he's on 22, which is cool, that the OSs are deprecating pretty quickly, right? 2016, and you got to keep moving. And at some point, you can't just go, I don't want to deal with it, you know, because you start to lose support, and you actually, you know, get to where support's difficult or you have other problems. So you do have to kind of keep moving forward. Windows 11, I just think, has been a hard one, maybe because of the timing. People have so many other changes going on with moving to cloud and different things that it's been harder to jump on it in my customer base.
Sarah, you were about to say something?
Yeah, I was saying we have both. We use VDI for special use case things where we want someone to have their own little less profile problems. You know, we don't. But for kind of just general use, we always have a pool of servers that are just available, and that way we don't have to sit here and do the math on, you know, how many people are going to connect if Florida has a hurricane or the Northeast has a transit strike. So we always have that ability to squeeze a couple more on without worrying about how many numbers we've got. So
yeah,
Andrew. Okay. Go ahead, Shane.
You're probably going to say the same thing, I think. You're talking about the Office support, or?
Yeah.
No. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Do that one, and I have a question for Andrew specifically from
the
attendee.
So questions while you're chatting, but yeah, it was kind of brought up. It was actually James had brought it up, right, about server OS. That's something that was announced a while ago, right? 2025 is kind of the last server OS for Office 365.
Allegedly,
right? So that's something we're gonna have to. What's that?
Allegedly, they'll do that backtrack again like they did in the past,
right? And most likely they could change again. But I think that's kind of to Steve's point, right? In the changing and obviously them wanting you to go more on the multi OS side, right? Multi-user side, you know, for Windows 10 plus, right? So I thought that was interesting. Yep.
Andrew, here's a question for you about your shrink script and your maintenance on your FSLogix. How many threads are you using to shrink for your FSLogix profile share? How many vCPU on the server are running?
Yeah, so definitely not my script. I borrowed it from GitHub, so I'll definitely send a link. And it's 8 vCPUs. But that 12:01 a.m. I think is what makes the difference on Sundays. It's my lowest usage time throughout the week, so it gives it an opportunity to run, and it takes a couple of hours to run through it. So, and that's just the default settings. I played with turning it up, but I started getting alerted and didn't want to wake up to that in the morning.
We have one back. Oh yeah, we have one back on Windows 11. So does it use physical adapter cards for TPM or does it use virtual TPM? So this is a hypervisor functionality, so no physical cards. It's all virtual TPM. So as long as the hypervisor supports virtual TPM, you can use Windows 11. And that's another thing too. It might be some people's hesitation on going is they may not have updated hardware or the newer hypervisor versions yet to be able to use virtual TPM to deploy Windows 11. So that's a factor too. And I'm sure some of you probably run into that if you've, for looking at Windows 11 and making sure the infrastructure is at the proper supported levels.
That's a great point there, Jarian. One point that Elliot had brought up, which is really good. I mean, that's something that I think it was early mentioned in the beginning of the kind of the CUGC event, but it's important to talk about the MyCUGC Slack community, right? That was launched. That's a great resource for folks all over the world that are sharing knowledge similar to what's happening on this panel. But also, there's a bridge, right? Jarian, you help work on the bridge to World EUC. Is that right? So
yeah, correct. Yeah, so no matter if you're in the CUGC Slack/Discord or in the world of EUC Slack/Discord, there are some channels bridge. We're probably going to start bridging more of the Citrix channels. So we have some kinks to still work out first, but that two-way communication will be going back and forth. So no matter which community you're in, both communities can interact for all things Citrix. So
that's why I've been confused. I'm in both.
You're saying that,
talking to yourself back and forth.
Yeah, let me ask a question here, because we've got our peeps here in a big community. Where are we with EUC? Like, Twitter has really fallen down. Like, Twitter used to be the king of EUC. Like, you could just go and it would just be stream of great information. What are you guys doing? What are you thinking? Are you seeing it's moving to more specialized thing? Is it more of a Slack Discord? What do you all think?
I rely heavily on Slack. That's where I look for all mine now.
My Twitter
world of EUC mostly.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, like the World EUC and also MyCUGC that they're bridged. They're both communities are kind of like the up to date, and a lot of folks in the community they're testing stuff. Like as you mentioned, Steve, this stuff is moving so quick. No one's an expert on anything anymore. Yep. If they tell you they're telling you some bullshit, because honestly, no one. You can't physically. It's just not. It's not possible, right? So you have to know when you don't know, and you have to be okay to reach out, right? The stuff's changing too quick. And so we all have to know how to find the information, and there's a lot of great information out there, but also there's a lot of peers out there that are willing to share that information, and everyone can learn from each other. So these communities are absolutely important for that. So I think there's that. And then also, I mean, I think for me, I've been trying to do more on the LinkedIn side. Like you said, Twitter's kind of turning a little bit of a dumpster fire. But maybe that will sort itself out. Who knows? I didn't try Instagram Threads. I wasn't one of the millions of people that signed up in 2 hours there as the competitor to Twitter. But that's how I'm getting some stuff is through LinkedIn. I do find though, when I do like pop on Twitter, I was off for like a long time. It's still people are still posting. So you can actually create channels on there and try to mute all the BS and try to zero in to what you actually need. So at least that's for me. What about
just posted the link, Shane, for the Slack.
Oh, perfect.
Discord, so that's in the thread here.
Awesome. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Stephanie.
We stand on the shoulders of giants. The community is amazing, and nothing against, because I think most vendors are this way. My first stop when I have a problem is the community. My second stop is the vendor docs.
Yep.
So we're I feel very lucky. So,
and the 10th stop is to open a support ticket. It's so freaking painful.
You got the support?
Happy.
So we have probably about 2 minutes left to close the panel out. So any last closing thoughts? We'll start with Steve.
Well, I just want to say it's so great to talk to you guys. We used to have a lot more opportunities and interactions with the trade shows and the in-person meetings. So I just love being here and connecting with the community. I also will let you know that the EUC Masters Retreat, which is, still an in-person event, is now called EUC Unplugged. It's coming up in April 24. Nice. Love to see everybody there. The information will be coming out soon.
Sarah?
I don't know, just been great. I feel like this last year, both with my own involvement in CUGC and the Citrix community and the things that, the changes going on with Citrix and the virtual, like I think CUGC has done a fantastic job bridging the in-person and, during COVID and how we've, it's really evolved. I couldn't be more proud to be part of it and the group that puts it all on. So thank you to them.
Yep. Andrew?
I'm excited for the future. So we're I don't think we know what's going to be here next year. We have some ideas, but I'm just excited for what's next, both for the technology and then just this community as we embrace it and figure it out and make our users' lives better. So,
Hal?
I don't know. They've covered a lot of it already. It's kind of hard to follow that.
Yeah, for sure.
Just say AI. We didn't say AI yet.
oh yeah, AI.
I know I've been in and out of the community for the last 10, 15 years. I'd show up for a while, then I leave and disappear, go spend time with my family, then come back. So I look forward to continuing to work with the community because this is the best community that I've seen in all the different technologies out there.
Well said.
So I'm hoping to see all of you again in person at some point, and all the people out there listening as well.
Yeah.
So Shane, do you want to transition us over to iGel?
I do. Yeah. What if I said no? What would happen?